Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello there, everybody. How you doing? Okay, so today we're here to talk a little bit about Scott Davis, because I have some news there. You guys may remember the video I did back in May when Scott Davis, basically his lawyer, was making oral arguments before the 11th Circuit Court in habeas proceedings. So, you know, and all the issues there with lost evidence, the new evidence that they've now procured from one of the detectives in the case, where he basically has given an affidavit that there were two tapes of the interrogation of Scott. There were two sets of transcripts, and he delivered those to the Fulton County DA's office. Okay? That both were delivered to the Fulton County DA's office. Only one of those tapes was ever made it to any, public record or anything, right? So basically, when it came to time for trial, the state claimed there was only one tape, and Scott Davis claimed that there was not. There was more. There was two tapes, and that there was some, jankiness going on with that. So they now have that, and the detectives, basically making it known the Fulton County DA's office tampered with evidence, lost evidence, and clearly, how are you going to explain it? How is it that you were brought two tapes and two sets of transcripts, and conveniently one tape and the transcripts that go with it, not like a tape and like the transcripts for the other thing disappear? No, it just so happens that the tape and the transcripts that correspond with it disappear. Just somehow disappear. Yeah. Or why not the tapes disappear and the transcripts left or something? Why? It's interesting that it's the fact that it was the tape and the corresponding transcripts that go with it that disappeared, right? Well, you guys heard the oral arguments and everything, and the opinion has been made, and basically they're denying it, or they're basically saying they can't do anything about it. And that they have to, basically agree with the Georgia Supreme Court. Their decision, and what this all comes down to, again, folks, is that lovely piece of legislation. The one that really ended up screwing Brendan in the end, right? AEDPA. Okay? Again, it rears its ugly head here. Okay? How powerful is AEDPA, you ask? Well, the prosecution can lose 50 pieces of evidence that you will never get a chance to see or do anything about, test it, look at it, observe it, anything with it. 50 pieces. Started out as 72, ended up being 50. Among those missing pieces of evidence, the supposed murder weapon, a swab with blood that they believed belonged to the killer, but because it didn't match Scott, they didn't run it. It didn't match Scott, so they buried it. Then it got lost before trial. Wow, what a coinky-dink. The blood swab that they didn't want to bother running through APHIS because it didn't match Scott suddenly was missing before trial? Gee, that's not conspicuous at all. How about the fingerprints lifted from the Porsche that they say Scott supposedly burned? Right? Which is impossible if you've seen the drive time video, by the way, that Susan Sexton and I, got together. And she went and did the drive and recorded it, and it takes way too much time. There's no way that Scott could have squeezed in a trip from his office in between times when people saw him. Okay, multiple coworkers. Okay, there's a very little brief window that he would have possibly had to pull this off, and it is impossible. The drive time is basically one way, burns up his time. Okay, not to mention having to do the splash and dash on the thing and all the other things, So splash and dash means when you take like gasoline or whatever and throw it on something and you ignite, and then you ignite that or whatever. That's what they call splash and dash, right? Okay. So not to mention that, and then driving back. So that doesn't work. So the fingerprints that are on the Porsche, do they run those through AFIS? Nope. Do those get lost before trial? Yep. So this is how powerful AEDPA is. And may we never find ourselves wrongly accused of a crime and have the state playing games, because the system is set up. I can see it now at this point. The system is set up to screw you. If once they get a conviction, they're going to hold on. They're like a pit bull with lockjaw. Okay? They will not want to correct it. Okay? And this is in Georgia, a case where a case that has just manifest problems. 50 pieces of evidence missing. Oh, and not to mention Megan. Okay? I mean, look at Megan. You add that to this mix. She knew David Coffin had been shot. Okay? She knew he'd been shot while his body was in a burning house. Okay? I mean, look. I'm sorry, but the laws of physics tell me it's impossible for her to know that unless she was there before the fire started. How else could she have known? Right? How else? So if she's there before the fire started, folks, I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? I mean, anyways, then you have all the missing evidence, and it's a highly circumstantial case, right? And then you look at, like, you see the way that the DA, the Fulton County DA, Paul Howard, is it Paul? I think it's Paul Howard, and he's like, he's just claiming, no, we haven't done anything wrong. No, there's only one tape. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, we haven't done anything wrong. And you get the courts there in Georgia are just co-signing it. I mean, wow. How powerful is AEDPA that we can even ignore somebody who actually has guilty knowledge? She knew he was shot while his body was burning in a house. How could she know? How? Riddle me that. You know what I mean? Tell me how that works. Because it doesn't work. And then you have the fact that this is a highly circumstantial case. I mean, and it barely floated over the net. Okay? The jury was nearly hung. Okay? They almost reached the end of the deliberation time without a decision. Okay? That's how close this was. It was barely, the prosecution barely got this thing over the net. And yet, Scott keeps bringing up more and more of the state playing games with the evidence, lying about pieces of evidence, and he keeps coming up with this stuff in the system in AEDPA. I mean, how powerful is AEDPA? How scary is it? I mean, holy moly! I can't imagine if I was finding myself accused of a crime. And the state was losing 50 pieces of the evidence, especially if they're losing the swab that has the suspected killer's blood on it. That's something that the defense would have immediately tested, and they would have run it. They would have seen if there was a match for it. Okay? You know what I mean? And that is definitely something the state didn't want. Okay? And so when you see over and over and over again where the state is playing these games and then you find the courts are basically co-signing it. And when it gets to federal court, they're basically co-signing it because AEDPA. I mean, how powerful is AEDPA? Way too powerful. Way too powerful. Because it's a scary thought to think that the prosecution can ignore one party with guilty knowledge and then pursue a case against you and proceed to lose 50 pieces of the evidence. And guess who's the only ones that get to come in and testify about that evidence? The only ones who get to observe it? Agents of the state. You think they're going to be inclined to deliver their opinions in a way that favors the defense? No, if they're hired by the state and they're getting paid by the state, they're gonna most likely, you know, I'm not saying they're gonna lie or do anything like that, but they're gonna accentuate the things that help the state, and they're gonna avoid things that help the defense. And it's not about lying. It's just about choosing what they would want to talk about. And that's the discretion that the witness on the stand has. And since the witnesses who were testifying about all of this evidence were employees of the state, crime lab, various other employees of the state, well, of course they're not going to be inclined to be favorable to the defense. Okay? And that's just the way it is. And so to force the defense to rely on the testimony of those people who lost the evidence to begin with, or other agents of the state lost, after they, originally examined it. But the point is that this is a huge chunk of evidence missing. Huge. And it's scary to think. It's scary to think that that's okay. Especially when you think about the fact that Megan had the knowledge that David was shot while his body was in a burning house. I can't say it enough. I can't say it enough. How could she know that? Alright, so that's where it is with Scott Davis. Obviously, the Scott Davis camp, they're going to regroup. They're going to find more. They continue to look and they continue to dig up more. Most recently, the affidavit from one of the detectives in the case who basically admitted the fact that there were 2 tapes, which goes against that everything that Paul Howard, the district attorney in Fulton County, has been saying for years. It basically makes him a liar. He is a liar. Because he's been saying there's only 1 tape, swearing it, a stack of Bibles, there's only 1 tape. Yeah. So now that's been blown out of the water, but it's not enough. AEDPA, state of Georgia, they control the game, and so they're keeping it stuck, and they're keeping Scott stuck, while the person I believe is actually the guilty party has skated off to Australia and now lives in Australia. Yes, that person who knew that David had been shot while he was still in a burning house, that person now lives in Australia. Yes. So, that's some of the things about the Scott Davis case that bother me. So, they're obviously going to regroup. They're going to find something else, and they're going to come at it again, and they're going to continue to show the impropriety of the Fulton County DA and even the state of Georgia now, because they've chosen to co-sign it. And that's the scary thing. Because for me, this parallels another case. Another case you all may know. We all may know. Right? Over in Wisconsin. Where there's clearly huge problems. Many huge problems. And what's the state of Wisconsin? The judge there in Wisconsin in the circuit court, and you know what's going on there? Oh yeah, we're seeing a lot of the same, right? A lot of the same. Nothing to see here. No, it's all fine. It's all fine. It's okay. Oh yeah, we had conflict of interest with that sheriff's department, and they were the ones finding all the evidence. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine. You know, we got a key that doesn't have any of the victim's DNA on it that was found under really suspicious circumstances on the 8th search in the defendant's bedroom. Doesn't have any of the, like I said, doesn't have any of the victim's DNA on it. Only a kind of astronomical amount of the defendant's DNA on it. But, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's not a trace of the victim anywhere in this trailer where they say she was raped, stabbed, and all various manner of things. No hair, nothing. Nah, yeah, that's fine. No, it totally happened there. It totally did, right? And this is the kind of crap, right? I'm being a little bit, I'm being a little sarcastic, obviously. Yes, but my point is that you can see all these problems, and yet you still got the courts are acting like nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. And it's like the Naked Gun when Leslie Nielsen's like, nothing to see here, and like there's a firework factory going off behind him, right? That's what it's like. That's what it's like. So yeah, very, very just disturbing. What happens here in the Scott Davis case. It's just, and I'm really hoping he's gonna eventually get a fair shake. That somebody's going to eventually just go, what in the hell? Why is all this evidence lost? What's going on here? Why is the district attorney lying about the fact that there's only one interrogation tape when it's become pretty clear now that there was two? So why is he lying? When finally somebody gets a hold of, where he can get this in front of the right set of judges maybe or whatever, or the right time, but God, there's so much wrong with the Scott Davis case. Just like with the Avery, there's just so much wrong with it. And yeah, these it's tough. The state obviously thinks they're right. They obviously believe that they are reasonably that they feel like they're very it's very rare that they can make an error. That's the kind of attitude they have. So they don't recognize mistakes, and they don't want to recognize mistakes. And that's a part of the problem with it, and why some of these wrongful convictions, that's why it takes so long. I mean, what is it, the average wrongful conviction to get it straightened out is like on average often about 15-year average. I mean, before a wrongfully convicted prisoner can get out. And it's scary how in our system it's almost not about once you've been convicted, it's not about proving you're innocent so much. I mean, that's what DNA can do now. Things like DNA can do that, but like a lot of the times you are basically trying to claim that your rights were violated in some way, so that you can get so that some technicality can trigger a new trial, so that you can get a fair shake at it. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to get that, and the courts are all set up to kind of perpetuate convictions. And it's sad, but that is what it is. I mean, they're really more interested in perpetuating convictions than they are sometimes about really looking at them. And I mean, perfect example of that is Brendan Dassey. Look at that. Judge Duffin grants him habeas relief. State appeals it. Goes to a 3-judge panel. He wins 2-1. Okay? And then suddenly, state files for an en banc hearing. It's granted, and suddenly, because of AEDPA, once again, folks, AEDPA, right? 4 of those en banc judges were able to go against Brendan Dassey. And the 3 that were in favor of Brendan, it went 4-3, and Brendan suddenly loses after winning twice. After the merits of his arguments that these investigators were fact feeding and giving him the information that they wanted him to parrot back, and because of AEDPA, that's fine. That is perfectly okay. That's what the 4 en banc judges are saying. Because of AEDPA, our law enforcement officers can commit child abuse. It's a great day to be an American. So, yeah. So, next thing I'm going to talk about is Eagle Nation. You guys know I have a great deal of sympathy for the folks over there at Eagle Nation. I was there when I was in Wisconsin for Raleigh in June. I went and stopped in over at Eagle Nation, had some spaghetti that was, delicious, and that was made by Steve, the owner there. And we took a walk around, and I had some of the other members of the wrecking crew show up, like Linda Kay, Don Ethan, Jason. There was quite a few people, and there was a lot of people there, friends of the shop, and there was just a lot of people, and we went live in there and from around there, and we hung out, and it was great. They're just down to earth, cool people, and we got to see some of the things going on there. I'll tell you what, it stands out really like a sore thumb, because obviously in the Michael Funk case, Michael Funk was one of the owners of Eagle Nation Cycles. There was a hostage situation in 2015. Yeah, 2015, there was a hostage situation, and Michael Funk was killed while trying to escape the hostage taker, while trying to, escape out of the building, and escape the person who had taken everybody hostage. And while he was escaping the building, he was shot down by police officers. It's a very tragic thing, and honestly, there's a lot of problems I have with the case, and I feel so much for the people at Eagle Nation Cycles, because I think a blind man in Antarctica can see what's going on there down in Neenah, in Neenah, Wisconsin there. And it's downtown kind of Neenah on Main Street. And you can go stand outside Eagle Nation Cycles and take a look around and go, It does seem like there's a lot of really brand new buildings. Yeah. On Main Street there. Really modern looking. And then you find out they really wanted the land where Eagle Nation and several other businesses are. And they really wanted that land. And that's when all this really strange thing starts happening. They come in, they start planting weed, and they start, they raided the shop, apparently looking for drugs. Which, by the way, when they find drugs, folks, which they didn't find, except for they found a little bit of about end of my pinky finger sized piece of marijuana that shows up after a 20-second skip in the footage, in the video footage. After a 20-second skip in the video footage, suddenly a little tiny little piece of marijuana appears. And just so you know, the guy who would eventually go on to kill Michael Funk is the one who somehow magically found that little piece of marijuana. Just a little interesting side note for you. All right? And then I'm going to tell you this. If they would have been able to find a large amount of drugs there, or some kind of a manufacturing lab for some kind of drug or something like that. If they would have been able to find something like that, they would have been able to confiscate the building. And that would have made it easy for them to acquire it, right? Now, I can't prove any of this. I can't sit here and bust out proof and go, here's the links, boom, 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 where it's obvious that that's what the city was doing. No, this was all more of a cloak and dagger type of situation. But what makes it obvious is, folks, if you're anywhere near Wisconsin, look up Eagle Nation Cycles. Go stand in front of Eagle Nation Cycles. Just go find Eagle Nation Cycles, pull up there to the curb, go stand at the front door of the Eagle Nation Cycles, and do a little look around. You know, stand in the place where, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, take a look around from the front door of Eagle Nation and tell me if you don't see some differences in the buildings. You know what I mean? And to me, that shows an intent. That Nina was intent on putting up these really nice modern buildings and that was their goal. Okay, but ultimately, and I can't prove that like I said, not in accordance with a court of law. I can't offer enough proof that a court of law will see it this way. But like I said, you know what I mean? If you go stand in front of Eagle Nation Cycles and look around, you'll see the difference for yourself. And then you have all these very odd things happening. And then you have the day that Flat Off goes down there and starts taking hostages down at Eagle Nation Cycles because a person who had acquired his bike had brought it there for repairs. So a person named Mr. Dalton had acquired Flat Off's bike. Okay? Basically, Flat Off sold it to him because he needed bail money. Okay? So Flat Off sold his bike to Mr. Dalton. Okay? Well, then Flat Off, obviously, after getting out, didn't want to be without his bike. So he decided he found out it was down at Eagle Nation, so he decided he was going to go down there and get it. Now, I'm not saying he was a genius, because, obviously, he might drive out of there with the bike, but then what? Law enforcement's going to be looking for him because they're going to report the bike stolen. Anyway, as it is, he took hostages, which is even worse. All because he wanted to get that bike back. And it's just an unfortunate situation, obviously. But after seeing the video of the raid in 2012, and after seeing some clips of like Michael Funk and Officer Hoffer, who was the one who would eventually shoot him. I've seen clips of them together in a clip just really right before all this stuff went down. So it's hard for me to believe that Hoffer wasn't aware of who Michael Funk was. It's very difficult for me to believe that because, like I said, I've seen footage where they are talking across the counter, Funk and Hoffer, 3 months before Funk is killed. So it's very, very difficult for me to believe Hoffer didn't recognize who he was shooting. Now, the other problem is Hoffer had been hit when they tried to hasty entry into the bike shop. Hoffer got hit in the helmet. Okay? I will say this until the cows come home. He should have stood down. He was told twice to stand down and he ignored it, and then eventually kills somebody and nothing happens. It's perfectly fine. This case upsets me. Obviously, like I say, it wasn't enough. They didn't have enough to actually for this to succeed in court. They didn't have enough actual outright evidence to prove what they wanted to be able to prove, that Nina was up to something kind of shady. They just couldn't come up with enough evidence for that. And so that's one of the things that makes me feel so, my heart goes out for Eagle Nation Cycles, those guys, because they're not going to have any recourse for what happened. They lost their friend, and he was very well loved. Those of you who know, I had two of the hostages I had on for an interview, and we talked and everything, and it was Ryan and Michael, and Ryan was the young kid, he's younger, compared to at least to Michael Funk, and he used to call Michael Funk like like kind of like looked at him like a dad, and they were very close and everything, and it really to this day, it really tears at him, because he now him and Michael Funk were very close, and now Michael Funk isn't there anymore. And for Ryan, that void is significant, and I feel for him. Michael Funk seems like he was just a pretty nice, easygoing guy who, really didn't want much trouble, didn't want to make trouble. And it's just unfortunate what happened. And the problem I have is that by seeing how much motivation Nina had by looking, like I said, when you stand out in front of Eagle Nation Cycles and you look around, it's very striking, is all I'm going to say. And I have videos where I did it. So if you go and find the right video here on my channel, you'll see where I was out there with my GoPro, and I went ahead and did a little spin out in front of Eagle Nation Cycles so that people could kind of see it. Like I said, that's not proof. At least not enough for a court of law. But, when it smells like dung and it looks like dung, then it's probably dung, right? So, it's unfortunate. So, there might be something interesting coming up here in the near future, where there might be something kind of cool coming up. I don't want to talk too much or say too much, but I will be very, very pleased if this does come to fruition. So there might be something cool to look forward to in that aspect. I am looking to have Ryan and Michael back on the channel here soon, and I'm very much hoping to get in touch with an investigator, a private investigator that worked on this case again, so that her and I can have a chat on the channel. So I got some things that I'm hoping to do. I've been really busy lately, and I've been trying to get around to it, but it's, like I said, I wanted to talk about both of these things because, the Scott Davis case and the Eagle Nation Michael Funk case are two cases that sit with me, that I don't like. I just don't like what I see. I don't like it. And just like I don't like it with Avery and Dassey, it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It's many times ridiculous in the extreme, and just not cool. It's just not. So hopefully we'll have something a little bit exciting to look forward to. So in terms of Eagle Nation, and I do want for them to be able to make more and more people aware of what happened there that day. I want more and more people to be able to think and think about that. And would they want an officer like that who had been compromised to, can you imagine escaping a hostage situation only to be shot by the cavalry that's supposed to be coming there to save you? I think we don't want officers who have been hit continuing to be a part of the operation. I think states should pass legislation or add to standard operating procedure, whatever it takes, but it should be wrong and illegal and prosecutable if an officer who is hit goes and gets back involved in the operation. I think it should be a crime. You've been hit by a bullet. Get the hell out of the situation. That's it. Anybody disagree with that? Because I think it's just good sense. So, So there's many things wrong, in my eyes with what happened at Eagle Nation. It's a terrible tragedy. I feel so very sorry for all the people there at Eagle Nation. Ryan in particular, who was just very close with Michael, and all of his loved ones that miss him. I mean, I think it was avoidable. I don't, I truly do. And it's, it's a tragic situation. So I will be you can look forward to me having, like I said, I'm going to have probably Ryan and Michael on again here in the near future. And remember Scott Davis, folks, if you haven't been, or if you don't know, go find the Scott Davis videos on my channel. Go tweet him, please, for me. Do me a favor. I want to make some noise for Scott Davis, because I want people to know how powerful AEDPA is and how scary it is. I think it's important. So share this one, share other ones, share the ones where I talk extensively about the fact that Megan was up to quite a bit. Okay, she was seeing about 4 or 5 different men, was never faithful to Scott, was generally chasing after the good life. She even at points in her life said to some of her friends in college and stuff that she wanted to be a kept woman. Basically just wanted to have all the money she ever wanted and only have to be able to, fulfill some contractual obligations. Basically, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, she actually said that. You can tell she was accustomed to the finer things in life. She wanted things her way. And so she was just running around from guy to guy to basically get what she wanted and play them again, while she's seeing this guy, it's the emotional games being played by her seeing that many different men, one of them being her husband. This was all happening during the marriage and all that stuff. It's hard for me to see her as innocent when she seems so obviously driven to attain a certain lifestyle. And I think, honestly, she started to realize that David Coffin was not, nothing wrong with David Coffin, okay? He's very well liked. People around him. He was, a real, man's man. He liked to do outdoor things. People liked to be around him. He's, he was a good guy. I'm not saying anything about him in that respect, but he was a bit of a playboy. He was enjoying being single. And I think Megan underestimated her power. And I think she realized that he was getting ready to with her, because he was corresponding with another woman, a woman he had met about 3 weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks before he died. Okay? His last phone call on his house phone, the last phone call was to her, was to that girl. And that is the last phone call made on his phone. So, was he in there leaving a message for her? Maybe when Megan came walking in, because he didn't lock his front door. He had a dog, and he figured anybody that wasn't supposed to be there would get dealt with by the dog. So he didn't lock his front door. So what if Megan came walking in as he was leaving a message for her, and maybe she was already having some doubts and maybe whatever, and had brought a pistol. Look, I'm not just throwing stuff out there right now. This is the woman who knew David Coffin had been shot while his body was in a burning house. Okay? So, you may say, oh, that scenario seems, well, I don't know, you don't have any proof. Well, I do know that the last call was to that girl. I do know that the front door was not locked, because he didn't keep it locked. As I said, he relied on the dog to protect him from anybody that shouldn't be there. Okay, so that explains how Megan could walk in the door and walk right into the kitchen without the dog reacting, right? So, look, and then you have the fact that she knows he was shot when he's in a burning house. I mean, it just kind of goes connect dot A to dot B to dot C to dot D, right? So, all right, folks, that's it. I just had to get on and talk about these cases today. I feel these cases, and very deeply I feel for the people involved in these cases, as much as I feel for Stephen and Brendan and their loved ones and their families, and even the Hallbox for the terrible tragedy that they have suffered. Whether, even though I don't believe it was Avery that they suffered from, but nonetheless, they are a grieving family, and it is terrible what happened. And it's terrible to think about all this stuff. And so I just wanted to get on and talk about Scott Davis and Eagle Nation today, because I have been talking a lot about Avery and Dassey, and wanted to get on and remind everybody that Scott Davis needs your help too. Tweet some of my videos. Tweet some of my Scott Davis videos. Hopefully some more people will look at them, and some more people will choose to talk a little bit about Scott Davis every once in a while, and point out that case and create a bigger awareness for it, because I really want that for him. I hope he can find some success in the courts at some point. I really do. He's just so close. He's right on that threshold, but they're finding that ability to hold back the tide. Okay, but maybe if we're all talking about it and it becomes more of a buzz, so that it's harder for them to just sweep under the rug, and the issues in the case under the rug, maybe that will help him, and maybe that will help give his motions and petitions just that little bit more bite they need to kind of get over that hump right now, because he's bringing all kinds of stuff, and it's sad that they're denying him on basically in this case because of AEDPA. They admit it. They say because of AEDPA, this wasn't like grossly wrong. You know how Laura Nyrider explains it, right? When you hear Laura explain it, how it has to be an unreasonable application, completely unreasonable application of Supreme Court law, or a completely, whatever. And it's like it has to be such a grievous error that no other judge would make that error. I mean, that is a high freaking bar. Are you kidding me? Yeah, AEDPA is way too powerful. Way too powerful. It was a bad idea to begin with. Why are we denying good, honest Americans their habeas rights? Why? Because some politicians decided that they wanted to be able to kill people faster? Does that sound wholesome? That doesn't sound wholesome. You want to kill people faster, so you pass legislation that robs the entire American, populace of their habeas rights? Yeah, I think you guys got your priorities a little screwed up. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that today, folks. Like I said, do me a favor, tweet some of the Eagle Nation and Scott Davis videos out there on your Twitters. Share them. Let's try to create a little bit more awareness of the case so that people can understand. It could happen to you. The state could lose 50 pieces of your evidence. The state could, ignore a blood swab that they believe is the killer's blood, but if it doesn't match you, they can lose it. They'll just lose it. Okay? This is what AEDPA is allowing. This is the kind of crap that it perpetuates. So, get out there and let people know, folks. All right? If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. We'll see you.